Good evening. Well, I'd like to welcome you to Macedonia United Methodist Church. My name is Kevin Johnson. I'm the pastor here, and it is a joy to welcome you into our space in this Advent season. We're grateful you're with us. If you have any needs as you're here, right down that main hallway on the left are restrooms, so they're about halfway up that main hall. And so that's the easiest space for you to find. If you have anything else you need, just let me or any of our folks know. If you're joining us on the YouTube channel for One Wake, we're grateful you're joining us as well this evening. Well, if I could welcome us with a word of prayer, and then I'll pass the microphone on, as I know there's a lot to cover this evening. Let's pray. Holy God, we thank you so much for this time in which we can gather and reflect upon the good work that has gone on through One Wake through this past year. And God, also as we prepare for what comes in the coming year and years ahead of us. God, I thank you for each institution and family represented among all of these folks. God, and as we gather, we pray that your spirit of unity would dwell among us, and that truly we would know your presence among us. Amen. Welcome Elisa Wolper to come at this time to share with us. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome again. My name's Elisa Wolper. I'm a member of Temple Beth Or, one of the 46 member institutions represented in One Wake, many of whom are represented here tonight. I've just been a little involved in One Wake for the past couple of years, but have started to get more involved and hope to stay even more involved in 2023. But we want to thank you for joining us tonight for this internal assembly and leaders caucus, because One Wake depends on the collective talents and energies of all the people involved. Having these events, the decision-making event for the organization, the decision-making body is very important. Last August, there was a meeting, and this body ratified a plan for the fall that included a public assembly with candidates for the Raleigh City Council, a 10-week campaign to do relational canvassing for nonpartisan get out the vote and targeted neighborhoods. And so tonight you can celebrate and recognize some of the leaders from those campaigns and those issue campaigns, but also evaluate One Wake's accomplishments in those different efforts. Looking backwards, you'll hear evaluations of the Cary Affordable Housing Campaign, the campaign to address rising property taxes, efforts to meet with the candidates for the U.S. Senate race, and the relational Get Out the Vote campaign. And then looking forward towards 2023, you'll hear a power strategy proposal, and then break out into your institutional groups to discuss that power strategy proposal for the fall. But before the evaluations and the strategy proposal, we wanted to take advantage, for those who are here, that this is an in-person meeting and that there's been very few of those. And so it's a chance to connect with each other and have people get to know each other. I know for me, knowing what motivates other people in One Wake is one of the more interesting things. So we're going to ask you to identify someone in the room here who you don't know and introduce yourself. And we've allotted 10 minutes for you to discuss one question between the two of you, and that way get to know each other, sort of a mini relational canvas. So the question to address is, what did you learn about power in your community this past year? And if the question seems a little open-ended, that's part of it, because how people interpret that question, and particularly the word power is one of the things that we want to explore with each other. So again, thank you and welcome, and I think now's the time to look for someone you don't know and start that conversation.
If I may call us back to order. It's so wonderful to be doing this in person again instead of in a Zoom breakout room. We all know how those can work. I am Reverend Wesley Spears Newsom from Greenwood Forest Baptist Church in Cary, and what I wanted to share with all of us here tonight is an evaluation of how our efforts went in Cary this year, particularly regarding affordable housing. Cary, as many of you may know, especially those of you who live in or near or who have tried to live in or near Cary, that Cary does not have a history of hospitality when it comes to affordable housing. Politicians have benefited off anti-housing sentiments. Neighborhoods have organized around not in my backyard principles, and affordable housing has rarely been front of mind in Cary's history. Some of us in this room know that history all too well. So when we went into 2022 with the ambitious goals for affordable housing in Cary, we went into it with clear eyes. We knew that this work would be difficult. We knew it would be an uphill climb, and frankly, we knew that it was possible that we could lose. Thankfully, due to the hard work of many people in this room tonight, we won. And I think that deserves a round of applause. I want to address three areas tonight in which we won in Cary: policy, elections, and zoning. First, we won on policy. When we started talking to the town of Cary, we wanted them to put up $3.4 million for housing. That was the Penny for Housing campaign, and we set a very modest goal, comparable to many other municipalities in the Triangle. And at first, we were rebuffed. Frankly, in 2021, we were disrespected by many of the people we engaged with our proposals. They blew us off. But when we started to show up, the winds changed. When we showed up to an early candidate forum in late 2021, we actually got to watch in real time a thing that rarely happens. We watched one council member go from a no to a yes when it came to our agenda. We'd met with this council member multiple times, and he had all but rejected our proposal, but when he saw our numbers, suddenly he had a different opinion. He's been a supporter ever since. We showed up in force to support the Cary Housing Plan, developed by the town of Cary staff. They didn't expect us to be there, and we caught them a little off guard. The politicians scrambled a bit to take credit for the plan's success themselves, but it was staff and the community that made it actually happen. And do you know what ended up being in the budget as a result of that housing plan for housing? Do you know what was in that budget? Because it wasn't the $3.4 million we asked for. Nope. It was $9 million. And that is a big win, and now we have multiple one-wake congregations and institutions lining up to build housing on their land with that money. You did that. You did that. Congratulations. So second, we won in elections. We held an in-person candidate assembly and a march to the polls with 175 members attending. We engaged all candidates in asking if they would commit to our agenda when it came to housing. One Wake generated high turnout in a weirdly timed election, and two of those races that were already in a special election went to a runoff. But we didn't stop, even when it was going to become a special election. We asked candidates again, will you support our agenda? Will you support your neighbors? in our quest for affordable housing. And in the end, the only candidate who didn't voice support for us, she lost. So in the end, every candidate elected to the Cary Town Council has voiced support for One Wake's agenda on affordable housing. Every candidate. This is the most pro-housing town council in Cary's history. I think we can say that. And you did that, so congratulations. So finally, let's talk about zoning. Zoning is where the rubber hits the road when it comes to affordable housing. Zoning is about what we're allowed to do and where we're allowed to do it. And it's the primary obstacle all across our country for affordable housing. But before we talk about zoning, I want to take a step back in time to another zoning event in Cary. How many of you remember when Habitat for Humanity wanted to build a lot of affordable housing on Trimble Avenue in Cary before One Wake existed? Yeah, I see those hands. Habitat wanted to build these houses, but neighbors organized to stop it. It cut down the number of units considerably that they were able to build, and it was a significant blow to morale and hopes for building housing in Cary. It was a bitter pill to swallow, and I remember being in the council meeting where all of the people were there opposing housing, and I wanted us to be able to do more. And now, 5 years later, we tried again, and this time the town of Cary engaged in an effort to build mixed income housing on public land next to East Cary Middle School. And at first the story was the same. We wanted a bunch of units, neighbors wanted to organize to stop it. They used the same tactics, the same excuses and attacks that happened to the Trimble Avenue development. But this time it was the same story with different results. One Wake had 41 leaders at the first meeting. We sent over 130 letters of support for the project. 40 more leaders showed up for the second public meeting. We sustained our action in organizing, and now there will be 64 units of affordable housing at 921 Southeast Maynard Road. Same story, different ending. Our next steps will be meetings with the town council in the first quarter of next year to see how we can build on this momentum and with the resources that we have allocated. So I'm excited about what the next year can hold. This was a great year for us. But there's one area in Cary we haven't talked about yet, and I want to hand things over to One Wake organizer Katya Roebuck for this next part, where we recognize some truly extraordinary leaders in Cary, the residents and the defenders of Las Americas.
Good evening, everyone. This is real quick. We would like to take a moment. Oh, it got into my earring. We would like to take a moment to recognize and thank the residents of the mobile home park Las Americas for their participation in all of the Cary campaigns. So please, neighbors of Las Americas, please stand. Gracias. Thank you. I don't know who is next, but Devin? Joni Cooper, I'm sorry.
Good evening to each of you. It is quite a pleasure to be here amongst such a crowd that is busy about good works. My name is Joni Coburn, and I am here to represent Southeast Raleigh. I'm a member, longtime resident of Rochester Heights community. And over the past 16, seems like 18, maybe 24 months, We have organized neighborhood leaders with One Wake leaders and members to stop the displacement of low-income homeowners due to rising housing costs, primarily because of rising taxes. Now, the community in which I live is one that was built in the late 50s, early 60s, and we have a few of our seniors, and I chuckle now when I say that because those of us who are second generation are actually the seniors, the others are the elders. Some of them have passed, but we as seniors are in the neighborhood now and back in the homes that our parents actually constructed and left for us as kind of a beginning of some generational wealth. So we take great pride, but we've also had to do the necessary upgrades and renovations to maintain the properties, and for the taxes to be a threat to the possibility of losing those homes, it's been quite devastating. And for those who are, again, the elders that are on more fixed incomes than we are, it really became something that we needed to address and address urgently. So we have been successful in getting to the table with the county commissioners and have received a pretty good support for a $5 million investment to support low-income homeowners. This is going to be called the Homeowner Care Fund. That is encouraging, but it's like, we've moved from point A, now we're at point maybe A+, but we're moving on. We need to encourage and get the support of the Raleigh City Council and other entities that may be able to match what the county commissioners have said. Now, to this end, it was October 6th when we met with 19 candidates for the Raleigh City Council, as well as the mayoral candidates, and had over 250 One Wake members and neighborhood leaders who attended, with almost 200 virtually. Each candidate was asked specifically whether they would support an equivalent complement to the community or the Homeowner Care Fund, and each one of them actually responded with a yes. Now the mission is to get follow-through on that commitment with those who were successful in the past election. So we look forward to meeting with them in the first quarter of their new responsibilities so that we can receive not just the monies that were promised by the county commissioners, but those coming from the city council and again, other entities as well, because we need the help so that we can maintain properties that are affordable. I met a friend, John Fleming, tonight, and shared with him that I was looking at the news, and they were interviewing people who unfortunately are faced with rising rent, not just in Southeast Raleigh, but in a lot of areas around Raleigh. And the rising rent is going to cause some people to perhaps move, and they're seniors, and they go from renting a place to homeless. So then we're dealing with an exploding homeless population. But the optimistic part of that is that we have organizations like One Wake, and we work with them, and the numbers, that is what has been my lesson in working with this organization. When you have numbers of people that show up for a cause, then you get heard. There's a difference in 5, 10, 100, 200. If you have a few people, like the gentleman said earlier, they brush you off. But when you start showing up consistently with numbers of people, then they pay attention. So we have to speak together, and we have to continue to put the effort in so that we can get the affordable housing. Because for people to be unable to afford housing, and when you drive down the street, there's construction everywhere you look, and there are new apartment buildings going up by the dozens, but they're not affordable housing. That's disheartening. It's disheartening to me to know that children of my classmates cannot afford to get a home in Southeast Raleigh now, but that's where they grew up. So we have to continue to work. We have to continue to search forward and to collectively work on these same issues. I thank all of you, and we will ultimately win because right always prevails. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My first time coming here, I was trying to figure out how you actually get up here. It's like a maze. First of all, I want to thank Ms. Colburn for coming up. Great job, explaining to everyone what's going on. What I don't want to be missed in what Ms. Colburn said was she spoke about the $5 million investment and, the work that has been done or how things are changing in terms of our elected officials working with One Wake to put something in place as far as property tax assistance for folks. About 2 years ago, the same problem that's going on now in terms of property taxes were going on then for folks, especially individuals who are in those areas that are being gentrified, those areas that were once undesirable but now wanted land. They were faced with problems. Some of them, their property taxes had risen as high as 360% in a short period of time. So we're talking about 3 times the amount they were paying in property taxes and above in a short period of time, in a few years. And so this was a problem, but nothing was happening except the property taxes just continued to rise. What did happen was we started to talk to folks. We started to learn that this was a problem. And we started to find leaders like Ms. Colburn and who wanted to do something. Because as she spoke about, one person alone or even One Wake without anybody behind them, right, who is having these problems, and we're just saying this is a problem, does not make it an issue. But I'm proud to have been working with leaders like Ms. Colburn for over the last 2 years. So I just want to give you, Ms. Colburn, Joni, as well as everyone else, my support, my thanks, and I'd like everyone please to give a round of support, a round of applause. Can we also give a round of applause to all those who are not here, who have been a part, the leaders who have been working on this property tax campaign, please? So Ms. Colburn spoke about a $15 million investment from the county. And I want everyone here to know that that number should likely increase. Right now, well, as we spoke, she said we spoke to Raleigh council members. They agreed to work with us and match or something similar to what the county is putting forth, that $5 million. And what we expect by the time we finish speaking with different municipalities, we're going to speak with Cary, please, as well, right? I believe that number should be somewhere near 15 million by the time we finish for the year. This is very important because we're talking about $15 million for a pilot program, which means that if we get this $15 million invested and we do the work that we need to do to make sure individuals get out, get the money in their pockets to help them, loosen some of the burden that they're having on them, then we can go back and say there's more money needed in this pot, which is amazing. But again, it comes from the work that we do as community organizers, building power, as Ms. Colburn spoke about, through people. More importantly, this is not just about One Wake. This is about what we often preach, ordinary people getting a seat at the table, right? For the last 2 years, I've been seeing ordinary people, or what many would have thought to be ordinary people, and possibly some may have felt unsubstantial, become strong leaders who are in the middle of these meetings with these elected officials who are being recognized, who are being respected now, and who have these seats at the table to help make change. I think this is very important because there's a culture being built. Even more importantly than a culture, I think what's happening now is individuals who may have gotten out of the habit of organizing and to work to make change are now getting back into that action of doing so. So folks, parents, and ancestors who have been doing this, with the SNCC programs and the likes, are getting back into the habit of organizing, which is very important. and very important to me as a person of color, a person who's seen so much bottom up, right? Power being used over folks. And so it's just been a pleasure. Last, I wanted to just say, again, Ms. Colburn, everyone from your community and the other communities who have been working, thank you. And One Wake and everyone who has been supporting this movement, let's keep working, let's keep organizing. Have a nice night. Chris?
Thanks, Stefan. Good evening. My name is Chris Olson, a member of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Raleigh. And while, of course, our main focus is on our local power and our local action, we had proposed this past year to actually take part and lead a statewide action focused on the race for the U.S. Senate. And we proposed a meeting with the candidates for the U.S. Senate for our North Carolina seat. And the goal was to demonstrate our collective power of One Wake plus our sister organizations working together from across the state, and that includes Durham CAN, Orange County Justice United, Forsyth County Sponsoring Committee, and the North Carolina Congress of Latino Organizations working together. Collectively, our goal was to deliver 1,400 members from across the state to a meeting with those Senate candidates. We plan to win commitments from the candidates to address our statewide agenda, including immigration reform, affordable housing, gun safety, and access to health care. To that meeting, we invited Sherry Beasley, Ted Budd, Shannon Bray, and Matthew Ho. Now, we made initial contact with those campaigns in July, and we had dozens of calls with campaign staffers. We also sent certified letters to each campaign in August. We reached out through our other state political leader connections, through campaign donors, even through nonprofit organizations, and through private foundation officers that we had connection to. As a result of that work, we did receive confirmation to attend from the third-party candidates, but neither Sherry Beasley nor Ted Budd confirmed their attendance. Ted Budd's campaign director did reach out to us in the final week leading up to the event, giving us a firm no that Ted Budd would not attend, and Sherry Beasley's campaign never responded. We did later learn that she was, at the same time as our event would have been held, in Chapel Hill for a fundraiser. Disappointing outcome and a disappointing response considering the lot of work that a group of these representatives from all these IAF organizations across the state put in. And so we asked ourselves, why did we get the lack of response from the Budd and Beasley campaigns? Well, one is we observed that this is a nationwide occurrence where a trend in high-profile candidates deciding to skip or avoid large mixed venues, meeting with diverse communities, and instead focus their time meeting in small, safe venues with their known supporters. We observe also a trend in reducing debates in those candidates meeting, not just in the North Carolina election, but across the country. This is worrying because, one, it means that these candidates and then elected officials who represented us are not hearing from large, diverse crowds and communities in their seeking of that election. It also means that groups like us and communities have less opportunity to hold those candidates accountable once they are elected. Now, another observation we had and a takeaway is that it means that One Wake and our sister organizations clearly have local power, but don't yet have that statewide power or statewide recognition from the existing power players at the state level. So we are not recognized yet, but what we can do about that. Our goal in 2023 is to build that statewide power further with our eyes on 2024 presidential and gubernatorial elections. So in 2023, we're going to use this time to meet and build relationships with our sister organizations across the state. We're going to build a statewide action agenda, and One Wake and our sister organizations will establish a legal entity through which we can act together on the state level. You will soon hear about our power strategy proposal for 2023, which includes engaging in a broad listening session across the county to identify new issues and new leaders with the appetite to address them. Our plan is to connect in the summer of 2023 with our sister organizations to share and to learn about the issues that affect each of our communities and develop that statewide agenda together. And our focus then will be on continuing our local work while then building that statewide action agenda through the end of 2023 into 2024. If you want to support this goal, your first step is to engage in the spring in these listening sessions, which you're going to hear about more later tonight. So I encourage you to get involved in that. I was personally involved in this statewide planning, and I'll tell you I was personally disappointed in those campaign and candidates' lack of response and ignoring of us. But I'm certain that after we build our power together, the next election cycle, we won't see that same ignoring. Will be much more effective. So with that, I'm going to pass it to Devin.
Hey, good evening. My name's Devin Ross, organizer with One Wake. I'm standing in tonight for Sharon Jones, who, like many of us, got a little sick and is watching from home via the live stream. So Sharon, we wish you were here, but please feel better soon. I'm here tonight to give a brief report on the third major campaign that One Wake was engaged with this fall. We've heard already about our work in Cary this spring, our work on the property tax issue that culminated in our Raleigh City Council action, and just now from Chris, our efforts to meet with state candidates for U.S. Senate. But in the background of all of that, as many of you know, One Wake was also engaged in a substantial relational Get Out the Vote campaign this fall, as well as some of you also know, a similar campaign this summer during the Cary runoff elections. We've been knocking on a lot of doors this year. Our strategy for both relational Get Out the Vote campaigns was to speak with infrequent voters and to have conversations, longer conversations than you normally would have during more traditional Get Out the Vote work, to really try and connect, to build relationships, to share stories, and to talk about how our local elections affect especially housing policy. We were knocking on doors of infrequent voters, and we were targeting precincts that have been hardest hit by rising housing costs. And at the core of our conversation was an effort to help people connect the act of voting with the everyday acts of compassion that they already perform for their neighbors in their neighborhoods, because so often the results of elections have a big impact on our neighbors. So in total, over the course of the Cary runoff election, as well as this fall's Get Out the Vote campaign, we had 106 leaders volunteer 649 hours, and we knocked on over 3,300 doors in precincts hardest hit by housing costs. And if you were part of any canvassing with One Wake this year, I asked you just to briefly stand so we can recognize you and the time that you've invested in that work. And it's almost half of us here. So again, that's 106 leaders who volunteered 649 hours that they could have been spending on almost anything else in their life. So thank you for that investment, and thank you for your time. What's exciting about this work is the relationships we've been able to build, the stories we've surfaced, watching people show up who were a little apprehensive about knocking on doors to talk to strangers, who almost always came back excited and eager to share what they'd learned. This was also a very high-tech year for One Wake. We had new tools. We were using the minivan this year, which is a tool that allowed us to target infrequent voters very specifically and track our conversations. This isn't the final report. Because of this tool that we're using this fall, in mid-January, we'll be able to see exactly who voted of all the people we talked to. So we'll have a very specific report on the voter by voter impact that all of your efforts contributed to. So in mid-January, look forward to seeing more about how many of the voters we spoke to actually got out to vote. But in the meantime, I'd be glad to give us all just one more round of applause. This was a tremendous effort, and thank you all for your time doing it. And with that, I'm happy to hand things over now to Reverend Javier Almendarez Bautista to take it from here.
Good evening. My name is Javier Almendarez Bautista. I'm one of the priests at St. Paul's right here in Cary and one of your strategy team co-chairs. It's good to be with you this evening. Tonight, as we gather to celebrate what we have done this year, as we gather to imagine what is yet ahead, I am reminded of the words of a 4th century bishop and theologian, St. Ambrose of Milan. He was reflecting on the words of the Torah. More specifically, he was meditating on the first commandment, as found in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God, the Lord is one. Of this commandment, St. Ambrose writes, it said not speak, but hear. It said not speak, but hear. Hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God. Be silent, therefore, first of all, and hearken, that thou fail not in thy tongue. It said not speak, but hear. A good word for clergy to hear every once in a while. It didn't say talk, it said listen. Listen for the divine word. Listen to the cries of God's own people. I am here tonight to present our power strategy for 2023, but the truth is that I am presenting the power strategy that has gotten us here this far, the tried and true path in our organizing. We listen first, and we determine our course of action based on that. All our work is grounded in responding to the dreams, needs, and concerns of the people most affected by the issues we target. This is what has helped us accomplish our goals thus far. If you remember back in 2019, we listened to about 3,300 people in our communities to draft our launching agenda. This agenda helped us gain the recognition of Cary Town Council candidates in the spring and Raleigh City Council candidates this past fall. This agenda has guided our work for the last 2 years, helping us win $375,000 in compensation for displaced mobile home park residents in Wake Forest, and a historic $9 million in investment for a brand new affordable housing fund in Cary. Most recently, this grassroots work led to the development of a pilot program in Wake County that has the potential to provide more than $5 million to prevent the displacement of low-income homeowners in gentrifying neighborhoods. You've heard about these programs tonight already. All of this was made possible by leaders committed to deep grassroots listening work. And in 2023, we plan to do it again. In order to broaden and deepen our power, in order to strengthen our ability to act on the pressures facing our families, friends, and neighbors here and across the state, we are proposing that One Wake launch a new listening campaign in the first half of the next year. Now, if you are new to One Wake, you may be wondering, what exactly is a listening campaign? A successful listening campaign is composed of a series of facilitated small group conversations that help us identify both the top pressures facing our communities as well as the leaders who have the appetite to act to address them. Our proposed goal is to engage at least 1,500 people from January to June of next year. These listening sessions can engage members of your institution as well as members outside your community. Say, for example, a community that has an existing relationship with your institution, the Boys and Girls Club, or a neighborhood association near you. We will also organize several large mixed listening sessions in the spring. So imagine with me for just a moment a couple hundred members of our institutions meeting in a large fellowship hall and breaking into small groups for these discussions. This would also support our goal of rebuilding relationships between our existing members, relationships that we have missed over the past couple of years of social distancing. Member institutions, however, would also organize listening sessions of their own, ensuring that their unique voice and surrounding community is well represented and heard at the table. We propose using this listening campaign to identify local issues with a clear, attainable focus. These local issues could be addressed relatively quickly, within 3 or 4 months, and they would not require the full power of the organization to win. Taking on these smaller local issues creates more opportunities for new leaders to experience leading campaigns and winning tangible improvements for their community. One Wake will provide training in the spring to help these leaders facilitate these listening sessions. Now, do keep in mind that we would reserve some of our power to monitor and drive our current campaigns, including our ongoing work with property tax abatement. We will not drop our existing obligations. To take on this work and grow our power in 2023, however, each One Wake institution will be expected to do the following. First of all, depending on the size of your institution, engage anywhere from 50 to 250 members of your community in listening sessions. That can be through a combination of large mixed sessions as well as smaller ones specific to your community. Secondly, each institution will also send 3 to 5 leaders to attend one 90-minute training to learn how to organize and lead these listening sessions. And lastly, you will be expected to deliver your full core team to our internal assembly in late February so that we can launch our listening campaign officially. Friends, we built One Wake so that we could take action before the next protest and after the next vigil. We built One Wake because we refuse to bow to partisan politics or private interests. So let us take some time to listen first and foremost, and then let's continue to act all the more boldly in this new year. One Wake is in this fight for the long haul, and I am in this fight with you. So let's go out and build a Wake County that we can all be proud of. Now it is time to transition to our institutional breakouts. So we will spread out across this room by institution, and we ask that you first assign a person to take notes for you or keep track of the conversation. And then we would like you to discuss the following. Discuss what you have heard tonight, maybe your key takeaways. Come up with any clarifying questions you have about our strategy, and have your note taker write them down so that we can collect them. If you are watching online, feel free to put your questions in the comments box, and we'll keep track of that so that we can appropriately address them going forward. And finally, just please let us know if your institution ratifies this plan for 2023. That's a simple yes or no. We will wait until our annual meeting in February to make our institutional pledges around how many people will engage in listening sessions. So it's just a simple question of, do you approve of this way forward as representatives from One Wake? So now I invite you to find people from your institution and discuss for just a moment. Again, discuss your key takeaways, write down any questions, and tell us if you ratify this plan. Go for it.
All right, everybody, we're just going to take a temperature check here. If you'd like a few more minutes for your conversation, please just briefly raise your hand. All right. If you're ready to report out, please raise your hand. All right. It's kind of a. Tell you what, we'll give you 60 more seconds, then we'll get going. Oh, great. Thank you. All right, everybody. If I could catch your attention, we're going to. It's 8:45. Our commitment is to get you out at 9 p.m. So we'd like to start hearing back from different institutional groups, and this is the part on our Zoom calls when you all type into a spreadsheet. But we're going to try and flex our in-person muscles again. And we're going to ask you to give just a very concise summary of your reactions. Lift up one or two questions that are important to you. We'll also have time to answer questions at greater length after the meeting. And let us know if you're with us. Will you agree to pursue or ratify this strategy and move forward with us on this strategy next year? So if we could have really anyone from any group raise their hand who's ready, and I see a hand right here. And if you could introduce yourself and say what institution you're from, and then, yeah, great.
Hi, I'm Carla Diener from St. Francis UMC in Cary. We love the idea of listening first, validating people, letting them know that they're heard, and then moving into action. We joined One Wake just as we were doing the public launch in October of 2020. So we missed the first round of listening sessions, and we're really excited to be part of this round. We have two questions. One, how do listening sessions and relational conversations interplay? Does one come before the other, or not, or both, tandem? Anyway, how that all works. And the other question is, how does an issue kind of die or fade if we decide it's not the right time or not the right place to address it, as I think we had happen in the last round? And finally, yes, we are in favor of the power strategy. We're on board.
Great. Thank you. Good. And let's see how the flow goes, but maybe we can try and field questions up front, but if we start to drag a bit, then perhaps we write them down and answer. But just very briefly, I think what we're going to open the year under this plan next year is trying to get people into listening sessions first. But Carla asked a good question, which is, how does this connect with the practice of one-on-one relational meetings, which we also encourage and use as an organizing discipline in our work? It can move either way. You can meet people one-on-one and decide you can organize a small group conversation to help people see their individual self-interests are actually shared by others. Or you can organize small group conversations like what we're proposing we do in the spring. And if you see somebody who's got some appetite, some anger, who really wants to get something done, that could be somebody you meet with one-on-one afterwards. So they can kind of move in both directions. At the conclusion of the listening campaign in June, we're going to meet again. We're going to lift up the issues that we've heard. And then we're going to ratify a slate of issues, and at that time we'll set out some clear and perhaps clearer guidelines and expectations around, what it'll take to move an issue forward versus, how do we decide if there's an issue on the table that's interesting but perhaps not winnable for whatever reason at that moment. But that's when that conversation will happen. Great. Well, thank you. I see, yeah.
Yeah, Chris Olson, UUFR. We are in favor of the power strategy and excited about it. We're excited about using the listening opportunity in the spring to not only influence One Wake's work, but actually benefit just our own congregation and hearing what's on people's minds as we look at our own strategy and growth. We're also very excited about the listening sessions, joining other One Wake members, because we really like this opportunity to interact with each other and get to hear from the community. We had two questions. One I'll send as a follow-up on the statewide interactions, but another question we wanted clarified is on the outcome of the listening sessions. We heard about kind of this opportunity to do some small focused, maybe quick actions, but wanted to clarify like how much of the focus One Wake will have on kind of large county level actions versus on these smaller community actions, and what sort of balance or what sort of split of that focus we're going for.
Great. Thanks, Chris, and thanks to UFR. And I think the answer to that question will be part of our meeting in June when we sit down, see what came up, and if it turns out there's one big issue that everybody seems to care about, perhaps that's what we go for. And then we can also make a judgment call on how much power we have to take on other issues. But that conversation will be in June. Great, thank you.
Hi, I'm Wes from Greenwood Forest. We ratify the plan. We talked a lot about the ancillary organizations that our church feels we can engage in listening sessions that interact with our church. Particularly, we talked about the ways that organizations who meet in our space could be engaged in these listening sessions, which is something I know that a lot of congregations in the area have other groups that meet in your space, and encourage you to figure out how they could be engaged too. And we didn't have any questions.
Okay, yes.
Hi, I'm Randy with Temple Bethor, and we approve the plan, and also I think that we're all excited about the listening sessions because it gives an opportunity in a less one-on-one way than the relational meetings to engage our membership through already existing parts of the organization. And we were not a part of One Wake when the initial listening sessions were done. So I think this will be very good for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and I'll work my way down, yeah.
Hi, I'm Gordon Wells. I'm here representing Good Shepherd UCC in Cary. We certainly approve of the plan that's been presented today. And I think our approach will probably be, we do a lot of stuff sitting around because our congregation is arranged in such a way that we pull all the chairs out and put tables down where we normally sit for our service. So this is where we have our meals. And this seems to be the right way for us to engage the rest of our congregation. In contrast to some of the rest of the congregations here, we don't have a lot of organizations that are large enough that meet at our facility that I think we could be engaged in. And we spend a little more of our time today talking about things that could be more local, meaning just within our neighborhoods. And I think we came up with a couple of good ideas that we could use as starters for that process.
Great, and yeah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bree Chaplin. I'm in the Southeast Raleigh area, but more specifically College Park. Miss Joni and I had a chance to get acquainted, and we were a little off task. We kind of talked about our own neighborhood a little bit, which I think is perfectly fine. However, we do think that the listening sessions are going to be a great benefit. It'll give people a chance to hear other people's ideas, kind of come together around some topics and some ideas and some action steps. We are definitely consider us ratified. We are with it, and we had 0 questions.
Good. Great. Thank you. Yes.
Karen Shank with Raleigh Mennonite Church, and we met with a couple folks from Episcopal Church of the Good Shepherd, where we rent space to worship on Sunday morning. So we are already looking for ways to partner together and think that the listening sessions will be a good chance to do that. So yeah, we're in favor of this strategy. One question we had was, for those who have previously received the listening session training, would this be new training, or is there like a refresher shortened version kind of thing? So,
yeah. The training will be very similar. We'll try and imagine what that refresher course could look like for those who have already had it. That's a really good suggestion. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Dilger with St. Francis of Assisi Catholic Church, and we talked about how excited we are for these listening sessions, not only for internally, but hoping to partner with one of our members that would offer more diverse conversation and experiences and living situations within our local North Raleigh community. We had no questions, and we are definitely ready to ratify this and look forward to bringing forth some issues for June.
I'm Kevin Johnson here with Macedonia United Methodist, and we definitely ratify the plan. And our questions mostly involve continuing to get our congregation on board as a relatively new member institution, but also thinking about how to engage around the county some other member institutions to kind of broaden the reach all around the county.
Actually, we can go down to the...
Hi, Roger Adama from Raleigh Vineyard. We do support the power strategy proposal. We are a fairly new member to One Wake as well, and a fairly small church, so we are looking to expand our core team and then leverage the training to do a listening session so we can really get to know what the needs and concerns of our organization is. So we're excited about it and fully support it.
I'm Mary Kintz. I'm from St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Cary, and a big yes from us. It's kind of fun to be also one of the long-term members of Wake County sponsors, One Wake, and to have this to show to our people what we've been doing for all this time. So we're enthusiastically in favor of this. We're really looking forward to rebuilding within so that we can reconnect without, and so excited to see so many of you here.
Thanks. And I think for our next report out, we might do some consecutive interpretation.
Hola, buenas noches. Mi nombre es Reyes Núñez. Hi, good evening. My name is Reyes Núñez.
Estoy aquí en compañía de los vecinos de Las Américas.
I'm here accompanied by neighbors at Las Americas, from Las Americas.
Seguimos trabajando ahí con nuestros vecinos y queremos capacitarnos más.
We continue our work with our neighbors, and we also look for getting more training.
Y queremos trabajar con One Way, capacitarnos más para poder entender la estrategia y así poder ayudar a nuestros vecinos.
We want to continue working with One Wake to receive the training so that we can also help our neighbors with the One Wake strategy.
Gracias a todos.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Who haven't we heard from yet? And as I'm walking, one thing that I wanted to make sure we were clear on and to lift up is that we will be offering training on how to organize a listening session in your community. Southeast Raleigh Table has offered to host one of those trainings, and we will have an update on the date and time of that training, as well as other opportunities to get up to speed on how to organize listening sessions in your institutions.
We actually didn't choose somebody until right now. I'm John Fleming, and we're with Christ the King Lutheran Church in Cary. So I'm going to start on the back end and say we are supporting the strategy plan for 2023. We're looking forward to the listening sessions, and we're already talking about how we can spread that within our congregation, but listening to others speak here, it occurs to me that we also need to include in that, how do we get it out into the community with our other organizations that we're affiliated with? And so that's going to be, I think, really an important part. We sort of know what our congregation thinks about these things. We need to talk to the outside areas, and no real questions. Did I do okay? Yeah. All right, thanks.
Great. Okay, who else? Great.
I'm Amy Symes, a member of West Raleigh Presbyterian Church, and we support the proposal. And we also were talking about, in addition to listening sessions within our congregation, but maybe trying to do some listening sessions with some of our sister Presbyterian churches that are not members.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, good. Well, everybody, we are at exactly 9:00 p.m. in this moment, so I'm going to be extremely brief. But the one other thing we wanted to call your attention to is that we are accepting nominations for One Wake strategy team. You'll see that on one of your handouts, the one with the timeline. On the flip side, you can learn a little bit more about that. The deadline for nominations is this month, December 23rd. And we will review and come back with a slate of potential strategy team members for the new year during our annual meeting on February 23rd, 2023. So please take a look at that handout for more information, and we just wanted to make sure you're aware that there is a deadline coming up for that. With that said, I'd be glad to hand things off to Reverend Javier to close out our meeting.
Thank you. Let us pray. Gracious God, I give you thanks for everyone gathered here tonight who took time out of their busy holiday schedules to dream about a world you are still building among us. Give us grace, Lord God, to be humble in our efforts, to be kind to one another, and to be brave in the work yet ahead. Send us in strength, send us in power. In your most holy name we pray. Amen. Go in peace.